Biodiversity is an essential part of our environment, providing ecosystems oxygen, clean water, plant pollination, pest control, wastewater treatment, among others. It does not only give life to Mother Earth, but also to the human eyes, drawing us near the spectacle and glamour of nature. But human economic activities, coalescing with arrogance and ignorance, pose a significant threat to our rich biodiversity. If the trend doesn't reverse, future generations will never be able to witness the plants, the animals, the ecosystems that will serve as the foundation of their existence on Earth. Today we will discuss in such a comprehensive manner our captivating yet fragile biodiversity, the problems hounding its existence, and the ways we can conserve it for the betterment and enjoyment of our grandchildren and their children's grandchildren.
Our country is experiencing a very high rate of biodiversity loss, indicated by a phenomenal decline in quality and number of habitats such as forests, coral reefs, and mangroves. This loss has extreme impacts on the long-term sustainability of community livelihood systems, political cohesion, and governance. Also, overall national welfare. While we know that Philippine forests are home to numerous endemic life forms, problems like rapid deforestation, transformation of mangrove swamps, and destruction of coral reefs all point to significant loss of biodiversity. The direct causes of forest cover loss in the Philippines are overharvesting and habitat alteration. The proximate causes of primary forest loss are commercial logging, community logging, kaingin or slash and burn agriculture, and conversion of forest lands to other uses.
May tatlong general na conflict pagdating sa pagmimina. Pangalawang, pangkalikasan. Pag pumasok yung minero o yung minahan doon sa isang lugar, puputol siya ng puno, maghuhukay siya ng lupa.
Now, biodiversity loss is not the only problem we are facing in this area. We also have invasive species. Foreign and exotic species can also drive native inhabitants to extinction. In the event that the former are able to successfully adapt within the new habitat, not all foreign species are built to adapt to new territories, so that those that are able to must have a distinct, innate resistance and resilience to unfamiliar and often adverse living conditions. Species invasion does occur naturally, but human economic factors such as interest in enhancing food production can result in either intentional or inadvertent spread of new invasive species. Also, habitat destruction figures largely in the equation, as some displaced species are forced to move towards new and already inhabited territories.
Why is biodiversity loss a very bad thing for humans and the planets? Firstly, we're losing species altogether. Mass extinction is now a common trend to us now, and that shouldn't be the norm that we should be used to.
Ecologists have been warning of a sixth mass extinction, and there's academic debate over whether that's already happening. What's very clear is the rate of extinctions is alarming.
Even species that aren't immediately risk of extinction are thinning out, and that other species that depend on them are also having the same fate as well. Scientists estimate that vertebrate species have declined by an average of 70% in the last half-century. Failing to protect all species can be potentially lethal to us in the near future. This brings us easily to habitat destruction. The encroachment of human populations in several plant and animal species' natural habitats has been a primary agent for the loss of biodiversity. Displacement from one's habitat leaves species vulnerable to harsher and new living conditions, predation from other species, and scarcity or inaccessibility of resources required for survival. Worthy of note in this case would be the heightened vulnerability of endemic species, or those that belong within a very restricted geographic area. This lastly brings us to climate change and global warming. The presently observed significant upward trend in global atmospheric temperature is heavily influenced and expedited by the release of harmful substances into the atmosphere as a byproduct of day-to-day human activity. Climate change is causing direct and indirect effects on lives of both terrestrial and aquatic territories. Take for example the evolving weather patterns that are influencing the growth and behavior of many land-based plants and animals, not to mention causing more frequently instances of extreme weather events, such as typhoons, heat waves that tend to harm, or if not outright, destroy food supplies. Meanwhile, the oceans are being subjected to acidification and warming, while the rapid melting of permafrost and Arctic ice is causing global sea levels to rise and endanger low-lying coastal habitats of wildlife and human communities alike.
So, we have these two challenges, climate change and biodiversity loss. We need to address this challenge together, not in a separate way. If we fail in one, we fail in both. The window for action is closing if we want to avoid irreversible change in the climate and in the ecosystem.
Agriculture and development transform forest ecosystems to human-modified landscapes. Decades of research in ecology have generated myriad concepts for the appropriate management of these landscapes. Yet, these concepts are often contradictory and apply at different spatial scales, making the design of biodiversity-friendly landscapes challenging. Based on a study on designing optimal human-modified landscapes for forest biodiversity conservation, the authors combine concepts with empirical support to design optimal landscape scenarios for forest-dwelling species. The supported concepts indicate that appropriately sized landscapes should be less than 40% forest cover, although higher percentages are likely needed in the tropics. Forest cover should be configured with 10% in a very large forest patch and the remaining 30% in many evenly dispersed smaller patches and semi-treed elements. Their study deduced that the proposed landscape scenarios represent an optimal compromise between delivery of goods and services to humans and preserving most forest wildlife and can therefore guide forest preservation and restoration strategies. These efforts involves utilizing updated and increasingly relevant approaches in assigning priority conservation area status in Philippine territories. These are assigned to complement the country's established protection systems such as the NEPA's Act of 1992 and strategies set by the 2002 PBC-PP, which stands as the framework legislation for protected area management in the country. An example of these initiatives is the new CAPP, or the New Conservation Areas in the Philippines project, which is a collaboration between the Department of Environment and National Resources, Biodiversity Management Bureau, and the United Nations Development Program through the Global Environment Facility. Initiatives such as the new CAPP are an encouraging move forward for the state of biodiversity conservation in the Philippines. The evolution from a centralized and government-centric approach to a more diversified, inclusive, and people-oriented strategy that enables local communities to build upon long-standing customary practices and traditional knowledge systems to effect context-specific resource protection measures in the different key biodiversity areas and priority conservation areas in the country. The recognition of the value of shared responsibility is seen to go a long way in creating sustainable change and efforts designed to deal with the biodiversity crisis in this critical global hotspot that is our country.
Especialmente en estos momentos de crisis, nuestro deber es repensar el futuro de nuestra casa común y proyecto común.
Pope Francis's encyclical letter Laudato Si looks into the exploitation of the Earth's resources, reminding us that the Earth is our common home. It raises the issue of us abusing our available resources, prioritizing capitalist needs by only seeing our environment as a source for material rather than beings with value and dignity. This can be seen in our large fossil fuel consumption to meet increasing demands, as well as the clearing of large forests for infrastructures.
Il suo degrado compromette il futuro del paese e della nostra casa comune.
Where does that lead us? This irresponsible use of resources is said to manifest in climate change, pollution, and other threats to individuals such as epidemics. But what can we do to move to a better path? One where we can live responsibly with our environment. Laudato Si says that technology has brought us to a crossroads. Technology can either help humanity advance or regress. Therefore, it is imperative that we use these inventions wisely, keeping in mind that sustainable living is how humanity can truly advance while ensuring a safe and livable future for the generations to come. But perhaps we are thinking too far ahead. What can we do now? Well, you can start by opening yourself to topics and talks on the environment. Read up on what's been happening to our planet. Read about the importance of the issue at hand. Practice sustainable living, and as emphasized by the Laudato Si, care for nature. It is a gift, it is our common home, and probably the only one we have.
The Philippines is blessed with rich biodiversity, but natural and man-made catastrophes are threatening its existence.
Filipinos must be aware of its importance.
The youth must take part to educate everyone about the dangers the animals, the plants, and their habitats are facing.
The government must stringently pursue restoring our biodiversity to its old glory, free from corporate and personal interests.
The people, in their small ways, can help save our biodiversity so our grandchildren and their children's grandchildren can see it for themselves.
We must be a catalyst for change.
Protect our biodiversity.
Speak up and take action.
Hold the line.
Give them their future.